morning. We are broadcasting live from Malaysia again, and today we have Arlene with us as a guest co-host.
Hi, morning.
Good morning, everyone. And we're just listening to some very beautiful song, although I don't understand yet. I hope to understand it in the future. I believe it's a Burmese song. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Well, it might be Thai. I'm so bad in this, but in the future, I hope to learn all the 10 countries' languages. Right. So, well, we'll have to start with a pretty serious news today, talking about how MH370, seems like, from the satellite images that 122 objects were spotted in the South Indian Ocean. And this was announced by Hishamuddin and reported by FSAT.com of Malaysia. So they were talking about how Malaysian Remote Sensing Agency, the MRSA, received today new satellite images that showed that there's 122 objects potentially from the missing MH370. So they said that the potential objects looks like, it's something that comes from the plane because it appeared to be bright and indicating possibly solid material. Of course, the actual search and rescue team has yet to be able to verify if the object is from MH370. But in any case, all the satellites, radars, and assets are going to be deployed to find out what is really those objects that they have seen so far. And if it is, they will conduct the next stage of deep sea surveillance, search and rescue. So I think that it seems like there are some progress towards a closure of the event. What do you think, Arlene?
Well, to be very frank, I think the progress is rather slow because it's been almost 2 weeks or more, and so far the actual plane itself has yet to be spotted, although there are sighting of it. What I think the public wants to know is how transparent it is in terms of the government in getting real-time data. And so far, I think it is good, but it's not good enough.
So I think that there were a lot of news articles that published how we could learn from the lessons of MH370. And of course, a lot of the articles are pretty telling of Malaysian policy and Malaysian leadership and competency, although not all of them are critical. Some of them actually provide actual lessons on what Malaysian government could learn. For example, from Today Online of Singapore, they were talking about how of course, number one, it seems like Malaysians' military preparedness is not there yet, because they weren't expecting the unexpected, and they were wondering how, a flight could cross Malaysian airspace without triggering any response from the Malaysian armed forces.
I mean, this is something that, even though we are not expert, but it is something that, in a sense, I think the government should realize that when it comes to issues that need, urgency and need a lot of preparedness, it must be done in a way that is much more higher in terms of the standard of how the government would sort of face such situation. And I believe perhaps it's also because we put too much faith in the government itself, and I feel that in this kind of situation, it has to be in the hands of experts, and we are receiving so far very little information from the experts themselves.
So of course this has to do with leadership, coordination, competency as well, which is highlighted in today's online article in Singapore, talking about how contingency agency must have a deep culture of competency, and this required meritocratic selection of talent, transparency of performance, and accountability of responsibility. And they actually mentioned that it is clear that these qualities are not the strengths of the Malaysian system, and the results were clear for all to see for the past 3 weeks. So, so we're getting a lot of comments like this.
Yeah, obviously. But I think it is also because, I feel that it is much more realistic to have experts commenting on this rather than having government officials to provide the end results or to lead the case. I think that is the key point on why it is hard for us to sort of trust, or it is easy as well as it's easy for us to criticize the way it has been going on.
But of course, while we can criticize, one of the good thing that even the article points out that we could give kudos to Malaysian government is that on their bilateral or diplomacy. So it's talking about how they were able to summon 25 other countries, or maybe 26 according to some report, to participate and help in the effort. So, which is a strong indication that, of course, it's important to maintain good international relations. And the fact that they are able to call upon such willing and generous assistance is also a testimony to its rich network of good relations.
That's true. I think in terms of international relations, Malaysia has been very good at it. But when it comes to being the lead role, I think this is something we might need to reconsider again. A lot of the times when it comes to see it this way: you have 26 countries working together with the Malaysian government in solving the case, and until now it is still unsolvable, and the plane is still out there not being found. So it shows that we might be good at creating this relationship internationally, but it also shows that we are still lacking in terms of trying to dig out the best in terms of expertise in each of the countries volunteering.
But of course, I think that we should play kudos to a lot of public members of the public, how they are trying to even crowdsource the search effort by using satellite images and actually pinpointing places in the world where the plane might be, and using their eyes on the computer screen. And I last heard the sites that provided that ability to search for true satellite images is actually visited by millions of visitors.
Yeah, this is something that I think that's the power of technology, and we have to give kudos to technology itself, I guess.
Of course, again, our collective sense of respect and sympathy are still with the relatives of those that are lost on MH370. Yeah. Right. Moving on to the next news from Indonesia or Saudi Arabia, because from Antara News, they're talking about how 39 Indonesian migrant workers are facing death penalty in Saudi Arabia. So, of course, we know that a lot of migrant workers from Indonesia or even Southeast Asia region are working in many different countries. And in this particular case of Saudi Arabia, they face death penalty because of their alleged involvement in various crimes, right? For example, this upcoming one is the case of Satina, who faces death penalty for allegedly killing her employer in 2011. So until today, from 2011, there were 48 Indonesian migrant workers who that have been acquitted, but there are still 39 others who still face the penalty. So,
and the sad part is, this is not the first time Indonesian migrant workers were being prosecuted in a country like Saudi Arabia.
Have you heard of any cases before this?
I think there's one infamous case last year, if I'm not mistaken, of an Indonesian maid being beheaded for, I'm not sure what was the crime, but it's something related to the treatment that she faced with her employers, and she perhaps killed her employers.
But I think we should go to the root causes of all this.
Yeah.
Like, is this culture shock, or is it mistreatment that leads them to do the crime, or is it something else, you know?
My point of view is definitely not culture shock. I feel that in terms of internationally, we have very weak, as in Southeast Asia, have very weak migrant policy and law. And especially when it comes to Saudi Arabia, they are being put at the mercy of not just their employers, but also at the mercy of the Saudi Arabian laws. And in Saudi Arabia, when it comes to migrant workers, they are, I guess they are being, when it comes to migrant workers, they are just invisible beings. They are the unseen, I guess.
It is similar to cases of women as well.
Yeah, it's similar, I guess.
Maybe a level below women even.
Yeah, it could be. It is a very hierarchical society.
All right. Now moving on from Indonesia and Saudi Arabia to Burma. So talking about how anti-genocide group are sounding warning about Burma, and this is coming from a US-based activist group called United to End Genocide, coming from the Irrawaddy News, talking about how this group called United to End Genocide was visiting Myanmar, and after a long trip to the country, he's calling for President Barack Obama to use his leverage with Burma's government to demand protection for its stateless Rohingya. Because he says, according to this president of the US-based activist group, Tom Andrews, who were a lawmaker in the past as a congressman, he says that clearly the danger signs are very present and growing, that we could see a catastrophe broiling there, and there's been significant loss of life already. So, and this, most importantly, is not because of anything these people have done. It's because of who they are, their ethnicity, and on the God they pray to. That's why they are being targeted. And so, we felt that this is of course unfair to be discriminated based on where you are born or what religion you are.
Actually, looking back at the Rohingya issue, on the surface, it might seem as a religious conflict, but I think on the deeper level, it is a very complex issue. And I met before a few Rohingya, and I've sympathized with their situation. And these Rohingya activists, what they can say is, it's not just about religion. It's a combination of religion, socio-economy issues, and also the relationship between different ethnic groups there, as well as it is a Buddhist majority nation. So being a Rohingya, it is something, is a contested identity for them. And as well, we need to realize that Rohingya is seen as a stateless society, as in like they are not being recognized, both the Bangladesh government as well as the Myanmar government. So they are in a very unique situation in that sense.
It seems like no one wants them.
Yeah.
Not even in Malaysia.
Yeah, I mean, in Malaysia it's even worse. I mean, we don't recognize refugee status. So, but the positive thing about this Rohingya issue is they can definitely leverage on the US foreign policy, because right now, the international attention towards Myanmar is vast, and partly because Myanmar is transiting in itself into democracy. So both China and the US are putting a lot of focus in terms of developing the country.
So on a related news piece from the Irrawaddy as well, so it's talking about the Rohingya case, except from a different angle. So talking about how Bangladesh, one of the newspaper published an op-ed, right? So op-ed is actually abbreviated from the term opposite the editorial page, meaning it's not the commonly mistaken phrase for opinion editorial, rather it's something that expresses the opinion of a name writer that is usually unaffiliated with the newspaper editorial board. Yeah. So in this op-ed, we see how there was a suggestion that the Rohingya majority parts of Arakan state should hold a referendum on whether to secede from Burma.
Oh.
Yes. I don't know if this is a trend globally, but it seems like in a lot of places, whether is it the Crimea, whether is it Burma.
Even Aceh, you know.
Yeah, even Aceh in Indonesia.
I think, in that sense, it is something I won't disagree, because I feel that, I don't believe in, having such a huge country with where everything is centralized. I personally think that having an independent state but is still somehow affiliated with the Myanmar government it can be a positive thing.
Like autonomous region, like what, Taiwan or...
Oh yeah, autonomous region is a popular thing. In fact, in China, there are a few pockets of autonomous regions. Interestingly.
However, this news piece sparked a lot of responses from the Burmese, especially. A lot of them were angry that this is a highly sensitive issue, and they were angry that this news piece shouldn't be published, and the government complains to Bangladesh over this Rohingya op-ed. Yeah.
So they are not supposed to publish it because it's a sensitive issue, or
because they say that according to the President's Office Director, Zhao Te, who told the Irrawaddy that the stability of our state outweighs the freedom of expression of foreign media writing about our domestic affairs. Yeah,
it's a way to silence the critics, I guess.
Yeah. So, and also he says that the conflict of Rakhine state is still in a sensitive condition, and we don't want any public anxiety on ground because of this article. That's why they are complaining to Bangladesh government.
I see.
On behalf of the Myanmar government. All right. Next on a regional level for ASEAN, coming from Bernama News of Malaysia, talking about how in August they're going to launch an ASEAN Young Entrepreneurs Association. This is an initiative by ASEAN Business Advisory Council. So expected to launch it by August. And of course, this is due to demand in ASEAN countries for skilled labor, especially in industries like oil and gas, construction, manufacturing, finance and banking, and healthcare sectors. So they are targeting to have a platform, whether is it for Malaysian entrepreneurs or even talents from different ASEAN countries, to be able to assist each other, and to be able to be at other market as well. But of course, you need to be internationally certified professionals and proficient in English. Well, I wonder about the international certification though.
Yeah, I wonder as well. But one thing positive out of this, I guess, we have to recognize that Southeast Asia has somehow lack of talent. Would that be true?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Lack of talent, if you're referring to the brain drain situation and lack of talent on soil, like in our country, maybe. But I personally don't think that any country is lack of talent.
Yeah, I think mainly my criticism is the spaces for entrepreneurship to flourish might be limited in Southeast Asia.
Well, I think that it's all about the condition necessary for entrepreneurship to happen, for it to be vibrant. There must be, funding. There must be mentorship.
Yeah,
there must
so it's a long,
incubator.
it's like a process, and it's not just like talent itself.
And we have to definitely add on about meritocracy as well.
Yeah, that's very Singaporean, promoting meritocracy. But yeah, I do agree the importance of meritocracy
Right. And then next on is also a news from the Star Online of Malaysia talking about a Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, or more commonly known as the TPPA. The headline is that investor treaties are in trouble. Because, of course, before this, we noted a news piece from Indonesia talking about they are going to cease their bilateral agreement with the Netherlands. And of course, this is not a new phenomenon. In fact, I think South Africa announced that they were going to terminate all they have already terminated, last year, because South Africa last year announced that they are ending all of its bilateral international trade treaties. So investment treaties. So for this, it looks like, I don't know, it looks like there is a trend for, let's say, globalization, bilateral trade agreements and whatnot. But on the other hand, there's also countries who think that, we don't want any of this bilateral investment trade agreements.
I see. We have to know that even prior to the TPP, foreign trade agreement is a common thing among countries. That's why we have regional blocs, we have bilateral agreements and all that, and PAC agreement. And I think the problem I find with TPP is the lack of transparency and the lack of information that the general public, and the fact that we are not being consulted on how the agreement takes place.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry.
In fact, this is the actual points that the Star Online raised as well. Lack of transparency. It threatens to impose a lot of laws without public input.
Consultation.
Yeah, public consultation. And it pressures foreign governments to adopt unbalanced law. And you have a case of how, let's say, bigger powers would enforce a certain law, and you probably wouldn't have a say if you're a party that signed the TPPA.
I mean, in any country, even the citizen themselves, I don't think they have problems with trade agreements. And we have trade agreements with various countries, whether it's bilateral, whether it's multilateral, or whether it's regionally between other regional PAC. So
I think one of the most contentious points is this thing called Investor State Dispute Settlement, the ISDS, that it's proposed in the TPPA, which is currently being negotiated by 9 countries, being the US, Australia, Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam. So what this ISDS does is that, if you are a party to that, okay, in the future, all companies who come into your to your state, right? Multinational companies or foreign companies, they are able to initiate arbitration towards compensation from your government. One of the cases in point is how in Ecuador, right? Because of a termination of an oil contract, an American oil company asked for 2.3 billion in compensation. This is US dollars, yeah? So you're talking about claim, like an oil company being able to claim against government and any other companies. So this is something that prompted a lot of government, including Malaysia, to rethink if they want to join into TPPA. But at the same time, there is a lot of ground movements, grassroots movement. They're not for the TPPA, even locally.
I think different parties have different reasons for not being part of TPPA. But for me, I think I agree with you. My major concerns, besides transparency, would be the invasions. I would say the invasions of multinational companies and oligarchy corporates, in giving them too much power to under the law.
Yeah, in fact, they are above the law, above domestic law.
Yeah, that's a huge problem that I think
it's a national sovereignty kind of issue.
Yeah, it is.
So of course, PPPA, we are still monitoring how the situation is. We have noted that there are a lot of protests from local groups, even Malay businessmen's association and whatnot.
I think different groups have different reasons for not agreeing with this.
Yeah, some of them think that it will undermine their industry in Malaysia locally. Right. So now moving on to Myanmar. A news from 11 Myanmar talking about a new road that connects India to Southeast Asia, and this new link is happening at Thai and Myanmar borders. In fact, it has already been completed. It's 45 kilometers of new road between Thingan Yinang and Kaukarik Township.
That's a very good pronunciation.
I hope. I heard there's like, more than 10 intonations in Thai pronunciation.
Wow.
So I was like, more than Chinese. I was just trying my very best. So, right, this new corridors is expected to be very beneficial to a lot of migrant workers. Firstly, to radically reduce their traveling time, and it will create a lot of job opportunities as well. And I think that it's part of a bigger picture of building an interconnected region at ASEAN. And this East-West corridors and a lot of ASEAN corridors are also in the blueprint of being implemented in the upcoming years.
Yeah, I think it's a positive development when it comes to transportation infrastructures.
Yeah, it's definitely needed, like infrastructure, before we can really talk about integration or of any sort, right?
That's true.
In fact, from the logistic industry that my family is involved in, right? They were talking about how in the future, instead of the current practice that you will have to change your lorry heights. When you enter a different country, for example, from Thailand to Singapore, you have to change your lorry heights. Now, a Thai lorry will be able to just drive, down south to Singapore, without any problem.
I see. So we are definitely heading towards a similar pattern like the European Union integration. Where every routes and every transportation infrastructure are interconnected to each other.
Definitely, I think it's only necessary.
Yeah, it is necessary, I guess.
And after talking about Myanmar, Thailand, we'll move on to Cambodia. Except this is not a very good news, because coming from the Cambodia Daily, we're talking about new mutation in bird flu virus.
Oh my god, bird flu has been there forever.
Yeah, but except that this is a new variant, because apparently it mutated from 2 existing viruses. And it was discovered around the time when Cambodia first reported it, 2013. And since then, 35 Cambodians were known to have contracted the virus. And we see that there are a significantly higher cases of this bird flu in Cambodia compared to other countries. Yeah, in South, even in comparison to Thailand, that's neighboring it. I'm sorry. Vietnam, to correct myself.
I see.
Yeah, so one of this very important piece that highlighted why so is also because of how they think that in comparison to Vietnam government, where if they do find the chickens and ducks to have contracted the virus, they will compensate the farmers and whatnot. But however, in Cambodia, because they are so poor, that the farmers, if there's any sick chickens and ducks and whatnot, they will actually eat it themselves.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and also before that, in Vietnam, they would not, in Vietnam, they would vaccinate the chickens and ducks, but in Cambodia, they don't.
I see.
Yeah.
They would eat the sick chicken, or they would?
Yeah, they would eat them themselves, like the farmers, because they think that they can't suffer that kind of loss. Quoting them, they can't just throw the poultry away, which will mean losing out on financial compensation.
I see.
So I think that this also highlights the state of poverty there and the lack of government policy, whether is it to compensate them or whether is it to vaccinate them for the ducks and chickens. Yeah, so we hope that the Cambodian authorities are willing to look into this because human life is involved. And the bird flu might really spill to other countries.
I think that is what is would be a major problem if it happens in Southeast Asia.
Right, and this is really highlighting the state of let's say globalization that we are in, right?
Yeah, it's unavoidable, I guess. Globalization. It is how we manage it.
And of course, we're reminded of Cambodians' current issue of even the arsenic poisoning in the well water. That's also an issue that they have not addressed yet.
Yeah.
All right. Coming from Phnom Penh Post, talking about how the villagers are currently patrolling their village to put out logging, and in fact, they have succeeded so far that logging is even on a pause now.
I guess Sabah and Sarawak can learn from that.
Yeah, well, there is normally a standoff that they would, kind of block the road from being able to connect the loggers, lorries and whatnot from coming in to their village. But however, we will highlight this via this news piece, yeah? However, the government, the authorities and the police is helping, all right, but they don't help us.
I see.
Yeah, so which is a pretty similar situation to Sabah and Sarawak because, of course, the authorities help. It's just that they are not helping us.
Yeah, that's true.
And if in this case, even indigenous people will be treated as squatters in their own land.
Yeah, I think this in Sabah and Sarawak is a really sad case for these indigenous groups.
So this also reminded us of a recent news piece that we reported in Thailand, Rosewood, on how even the monks and the temples have to help out with the villagers, closing their temple doors and preventing the logging companies from coming in. And a lot of this are whether is it done illegally or whether is it done legally in the sense of how they have somehow won the contract to log there. And this particular case threatens their livelihood as well because the villagers used to produce resin from those trees, and then they are involved in the clothing industry and whatnot and weaving.
This boils back to the question why the government is not doing anything to prevent this. Why villages or communities have to resort by them on their own to solve the problems of loggers.
I think that if you do not have a transparent government that's corrupt-free, this will be some of the issues that will transpire. In fact, later we will have an hour session talking about corruption. So do stay tuned to ASEAN Breakfast Call. So we'll see you after the break.